We are an early stage funding facilitator and network. We work with companies that are typically at the early seed stage. A lot seem to be sort of pre-crowdfunding stage, sort of pre-seeded crowd, agnostic in scope, and usually raising up to sort of £500,000. We have a network of about 200 funds and high net worth contacts that we work with. And that's now built up to a community of about 1,500, 2,000 startups. We are a team basically spread around about 5-6 countries in Europe. We're all spread out in different ecosystems, working with different accelerator startups. We're based at Google for Startups ourselves, but we recently rebranded from Agora to Kaiku, and beyond that, do a lot of investment readiness work as well. So for those in the UK, SEIS work, essentially legal structuring, where we work with partners to do that, and a lot of pitch deck work. So this is actually one of our first events online, because I was managing these for another organization up to not so recently. I'm also one of the venture director at Birmingham Enterprise Community, which has become one of the fastest growing accelerators in the West Midlands region. So my sort of stance is very much sort of funding outlook and on focus of acceleration. So nothing to do with sort of talent strategy, although I have run quite a few large teams, specifically more in sort of event space before. But yeah, it's the whole benefit of this for everyone, I suppose, is really mixed. So, we're a small group anyway, and that's the whole point. And I think talent strategy at the moment is one of the biggest things. And I definitely would welcome hearing more from Fedor on this, because we're about 14 on our team spread out all over the place. So really do ask things as we go along. That's why we've got the chat. I appreciate everyone will be at different stages and wanting to look at sort of the UK system and what this means with moving out. Well, I say moving out of COVID, we're still in it, but things are changing a little bit. So if I hand over to Fedor to sort of take us on from here, but I'm more than happy to sort of moderate on the chat. I appreciate a few people may have some audio issues, but that's just Google. That's normal. And we'll probably wrap up sort of, I suppose, 30-35 minutes or something like that. So Fedor, thanks a lot, and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Right, so I guess a short intro. So what I do, I help both entrepreneurs and students and basically everyone in their early career, as well as setting up the business in the UK when it concerns visas. And because visas are concerned, it gets complicated, and I hope to unravel this complexities. That's short intro about me. What we can talk about the strategy about the whole talent thing, right? So what I had in mind when I first chatted with Alex is that there are a lot of people who want to set up their own business or who already set up their business, and they're struggling with managing the team, or they're managing kind of the hiring process, or kind of getting the right people together and making sure that these people can work together quite well. Um, so there will be kind of a few tips and tricks in terms of what to look for when you hire the right people, and how to ensure that you boost the engagement well, keeping in mind that we're talking about startups, we're talking about small teams, we're talking about organizations which have very low budget or sometimes no budget, and we're going to talk about what happens when you have no money but you still need help. That also happens. Right, so that's kind of the general topic. We can also go towards other aspects in terms of how do you impress the employer and how do you pass through all the kind of recruitment stages, if some of you guys will be interested in that. But that's not the main point today. The main point is to talk if you want to hire the right people on a low budget. What industries do you operate in? Well, it's kind of mostly professional services and tech. So I'm not going to talk about hospitality. I actually have no clue how it works. I know how work marketing agencies, investment firms, business consulting firms, accounting firms, just all those kind of things. Um, I guess so. Mostly like office-based stuff. A little bit about other kinds of startups. When the startup starts, almost all the startups, when they go through the bedroom stage, bedroom type of startup, and like the founder is sitting in home and trying to figure out what to do next. Uh, I guess on COVID now it's quite common. And then we have some other founders which start the business, they rent the place, rent the office, go there. Or we have some other people who start the business alongside their main work. Again, they probably do it part time. And at that stage, the industry doesn't matter that much in terms of hiring. What matters is the team dynamics. What matters is how you interact with the team more than the industry. That's my observations, at least in the professional services. Right. So kind of few tips and tricks. If we talk about hiring people, right? So there are, I'm gonna touch on the kind of the basics of HR theory. So we have CVs, we have cover letters, we have all this kind of usually boring documents to read through. We have job advertisements, we have interviews, we have assessment centers. Why do we need that? Why do large companies spend thousands and thousands to recruit the brightest and best? Well, they can afford to do that. As a startup, you can't do all this kind of really sophisticated stuff, but some groundwork you need to do is basically you need to ensure that the people know of your vacancy, of your role. It's fine. You can start just asking your friends and family. You can say, "Oh, I need help with this and that." But unless you solidify what exactly the job role would be, you would end up just getting not the right fit of people, and you waste a lot of time. So just writing it all down in one place, usually somewhere digitally, would help you a lot with attracting the right people. That's why there are job ads. Then we have CVs and cover letters. So how do you look at those when people apply for you? And it doesn't matter where you post a job ad. People will just send CV and cover letter. So first of all, you see how relevant the experience is, but not just that. You can look at the attention to detail things. So how accurate is a CV? How neat is it? Right. So this is something which these written documents can tell you without having to do the interview. You can see what relevant experience person has, and it's not just what there's on CV. On the cover letter, it can explain a story of the person, and sometimes you can see new angles how it can be relevant to you, or you can see how involved the person is in terms of getting a job, a role with you. So that's why cover letters exist, not just CVs. It also helps to see the motivation. So if the person just wants a job just for the money, these people won't stick with you for long. They'll just be there for money. And as a startup, it's not ideal because you won't be able to offer that much of remuneration. So you need to see who is really interested to join you. You need to see the kind of motivation of people. Right. What else is there? So we have CVs, cover letters. That's fine. So you look at those, you see this basically adequate. They talk about relevant things for you. You see, you're looking, for example, for a copywriter. You see that the person has copywriting experience. You ask in the job ad that they send their portfolio. They write down their portfolio in the cover letter, which is perfect. So you see people read stuff. Their attention to detail is good. Then once you shortlist these applicants, you need to think about how do you assess that they are the right fit for you, given that you have very little time, you are busy with life, you are busy with your business, you probably don't have a proper HR person on your team. You have just yourself, maybe a few other teammates. How do you make sure that this person is right for you, and how do you make sure that basically this person says real stuff so that they don't just kind of put the fancy words and they don't stand the truth, right? That actually happens a lot. So I think about a third of job applications, you would see people lie on their CVs and cover letters. So how do you ensure that? So first of all, once you start the interview, there's the ice-breaking session. You all been through interviews, so you probably know about this. The reason behind why you don't just kickstart into going and asking questions is that some people are extroverted, some people are introverted. Both of this kind of people is fine. So some people prefer to talk to other people, some people prefer to work with numbers. But if you don't create kind of a safe space to talk about, casual stuff, some people will be stiffer and they won't shine. They won't be able to talk in detail about what they can offer you. So that's why we have the ice breaking session. And that's basically, how are you? How was your day? How was the weather? This kind of questions which don't really mean anything, just to make sure that you kind of on the same wavelength. It also helps to understand the person is adequate. Surprisingly, when we talk about startups and small firms, when you think about recruitment, there are lots of people who will qualify for the role unless you're looking for some highly technical aspects. So as a startup, as a small firm, you would usually need for just people who are clever, who are quick, who basically don't need to be closely managed and basically have all the kind of good worker qualities. You don't need that much of experience usually. Uh, Sometimes, yeah, you need an expert, but in that case, you may actually just go and get yourself a freelancer or something like this in the realities of a small startup. Now, what's next is basically you would still need some relevant experience. I mean, you can be hiring graduates, but even then, you would want to see that the person did something relevant to what you want the person to do at the role. And you start asking the questions. And the way the person answers those questions is really important. If you ask the question, tell me about the experience when you had to sell something, and the person doesn't give you specifics, the person says something like, so I was selling things back at university. I was selling pens back at school, and or something like this, or maybe stronger examples, but still kind of irrelevant. In the past role, I was an analyst, but still I go to networkings and I would still sell the products of my company. I would create new relationships, and there's no specificity, there's no concrete situation. Then you can say that the person is not confident. That's not his core competency, and you would either need to dig further or you would need to create an assumption that basically this person doesn't have relevant experience and that's not his strong point, and that this is really important as a startup, right? So then we have another aspect of the interviews, and then we'll open up, I guess, to discussion at the point. Another aspect is that caught how do you catch that people lie to you, right? And there is a relatively simple technique. At the start of the interview, and that's a theory because I don't do it myself, I just can't be bothered, but that really works well. At the start of the interview, you say to the person, blah, 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 thank you, the icebreaker, and then you say, just to let you know, after the interview is done, if we select you, we will request your reference and we'll call you. And if you say that, if you say it like that, even if you don't check, but if you just say that, the person would be more careful about creating a better picture than he is not. So that's a really neat trick there. Um, that's kind of the main thing about just the hiring and selecting people. Also, I guess I would advocate for giving the test tasks, so kind of trialing some kind of work assignments with the person, because nothing will actually show how the person works well with the team apart from just trialing and testing it. Then we have all this kind of online tests and things like this. As a startup, don't really need that. You will just get lost of analyzing the results, and it will just complicate things, and you'll have less people going through to the interview stage. That's the main thing about the kind of hiring techniques, guys. If you have any questions or ideas, I guess you guys have some experience yourself. That would be a great discussion topic.
Do you recommend using volunteers and, I suppose, ad hoc support, or do you see much of it when you're working with sort of, I suppose, early stage founders and they're trying to look at taking on an early stage team and be as efficient as possible? And if so, what problems come up with it?
Okay, so the first problem with volunteering is that it's illegal. So you need to check on the employability law. Well,
Sure. I mean, let's assume
yeah,
you have an option scheme in place or something like that.
yeah,
Let's assume you have an option scheme in place.
that's the biggest
If
issue.
you're a non-profit, it's fine, but
Yeah, exactly. But if you're for profit, you can't really go for volunteering. You have to find a way through, and there are ways through, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. Uh, right. In terms of getting interns, in terms of getting people to help you experience or not experience just because they want to collaborate, I think that's great. And I think it also helps kind of create this kind of a space for you to test each other, to test if it's going to work or not. You can also create kind of a promise. I guess it's best if you have something solid, like okay, we can't afford to pay you right now, or we don't want to pay you during the first week. We want to see how you're gonna perform. If you can pay, always pay. That's the main rule. But then if you can't pay, or in a situation where you have to be very careful about how you spend money, then you can create this kind of discussion with the person and say, look, here's the situation. We don't have that much money. We're a startup. We want to see what you can offer us. If you can offer us something which is revenue generating, perfect. Then we will split part of this revenue, and that will be a salary, or there will be some kind of special arrangement. If not, then we'll still remunerate you in some way or another. And the reason is, people who contribute, if you want people to contribute more than 2 hours a month, and if you want to rely on people, you will need to show some financial kind of remuneration. Otherwise, you will, as a founder or as a manager, you would waste a lot of people, a lot of time onboarding the people, and then their motivation may burn out without the finances, and you'll hire another person and another person and another person, and you'll waste much more time just dealing with the hiring and firing. You won't be even firing people. They'll just, if they don't get paid, they'll just come do something. They will take on a task. Then the first sign, they will be missing deadline. Second sign, they will be missing on communication. And then third sign, say, sorry, I need to get paid engagement or something like that. So there's that. That's my stance on volunteers. I used to do that. I used to hire people for work experience. It works, but you need to create something which is of value to them too. So coaching, or you need to create like learning support, or if we talk about graduates who would need visa, you would need to create some kind of a framework. For example, okay, you work right now for free. If you can manage to do it in the rightful and legal way, and that's important, you can work right now for free. We check if you work right. We check if you can create a position for yourself. And then basically, if we see that you have value, if we see that we can cover the cost of the visa or whatever, if we can come to the financial arrangement, we do it. But if during this 1, 2, 3 months of working with us, you just don't show your value, I'm sorry, but like we can't offer you a paid position. And that works specifically with people who would need visa, because the value of the work visa, as some of you probably know, is really high. So that will make a good deal for them. Also, having UK work experience for internationals is also a really good kind of offer.
And do you think it's quite important to, I know it's a balance, but if you have someone on board, you've got a mutual incentive, they're both happy of how you're going to work. How, I suppose, stringent do you think, work plans should be, or what they're working towards? Do you recommend that sort of stuff at the beginning as well?
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm gonna answer this, and I'm gonna talk about Palina's question.
Sure.
So about how stringent, how fixed should it be? It depends on your leadership style, and it depends what people you attract. As you probably know, there are people who like to follow structure and order, and there are people who like to be really creative. What's important is that getting results, right? I think we all can agree on that. If person comes and gets stuff done, that's the most important thing. Then the secondary is the structure, right? I'm more towards structure. I'm more towards using not spreadsheet, using kind of corporate messenger, writing everything there. Then we have online project management software. We log in everything there. Then we have meetings. We write down who said what, who is responsible for what, specific deadlines up to an hour. We do that, right? But I recognize some people don't work like that. So sometimes I work with this kind of people, and we just create more kind of flexible arrangement. I set up a final deadline. I set up my expectations, and the key rule with kind of strict or not strict for me, it's the value of promise, in terms of um, I'm gonna get this done by Friday. Perfect. Okay, fine. You're not gonna, if the person doesn't deliver what he promises, then you have a trust issue. And if you don't have trust, even in this kind of questions, then it will be hard to create anything better than that. So you need, first of all, to ensure that you have the right communication with each person. So I don't think structure is that important. I prefer structure more, but I saw teams which work without structure. If you talk about scalable teams, structure I think is essential. If you talk about non-scalable products, non-scalable things, you can be creative, like creative collab. Right, the questions. You will go. Right. I'm looking for interns to join the startup, and a lot of people with several years of experience are applying, as well as recent graduates. What's your view on this situation? Pros and cons of both sides. Um, Expectations, I guess, and communication. So you need to think what's the value of these people with experience and with graduates to join the startup. If we talk about graduates, for me, it's much more clear and straightforward. They need experience. If they and you can afford to pay them less or sometimes nothing at all. Again, subject to just be careful to be on the right side of the law. Um, with graduates, it's kind of like that. So you give them a springboard, you give them the opportunity to shine. With experienced hires, it depends what the role requires. So if you when you have a startup, when you have a mission, when you have a business, you realize that there's some things you need experience at, and you realize some areas the person can teach themselves. From my perspective, for example, B2C sales is something a person can learn if he has an aptitude or she has an aptitude towards sales. B2C sales, perfect. Social media marketing as well, super easy. So if the person is really interested in this topic, he's kind of learning on a job, 1, 2, 3 months, ideally with some mentorship, but even without it, the person can become on par with some of people who call themselves experts in marketing. B2B sales, no. B2B sales without experience, I don't think it's going to work. So you need some mentorship with B2B experience. Again, if you talk about analytics, you can get an analyst with almost no experience, but the analyst would need to understand the commercial picture, what he's going to analyze. So you need to see the big picture. So if you can tell kind of the position you're hiring for and what's the challenge there, I can probably tell you what's right or wrong. Uh, but that's kind of extreme cases. In most cases, you can hire both people and adjust. More experienced people will get things done more efficiently, probably quicker, um, but you'll expect to pay them more. If you hiring graduates, they'll just be slower, right? So most of them, they'll be quick with using technology, and that's the thing. They'll be slow of understanding how to basically talk with people and the kind of commercial aspect of conversations. They'll be slower to catch up on that. Does it answer your question? I guess it was a bit wishy-washy.
You've got one from Aristos, co-founders.
Oh yeah. So, any background founders looking to offer a startup co-founder role and the issues around offering options equity? Oh yes, I do. Uh, okay. I don't want to talk about the legal aspect of it. I'm not good at the legal side of kind of separating it, and I guess you can look up seed legals and all the kind of online guides on that. I can talk about real life situations. So we have an entrepreneur. I would say two key differences for me was experience and actually how old the person was, how experienced was he with business. So we have situation A, a guy, a millennial, so I would say below the age of 25, he's starting a business with his worldview and everything, and then he is looking for co-founders, and we have people who are over the age of 40. That's basically from my experience, and that really separates in terms of how they approach it. So a millennial guy would be like mission driven. Everything is about, this idea is so incredible, so great, let's just get it done, let's get together, yay, we can do it. And they are sometimes too quick to offer equity and too quick to kind of offer partnership without really testing grounds, without really testing how they're going to work together with the person, without really understanding how the person is from the professional perspective. And younger people tend to offer this kind of things to their friends without actually working with these people. And this creates, as you can probably imagine, the kind of approach I'm taking, it actually goes the wrong way a lot of times. So a few of my startups started like that. So this is a great guy. I love him. He loves me. Like, we're besties, right? We start working together. Our strengths and weaknesses don't match. And we already started it, like his idea, my processes, my idea, her kind of expertise. It just didn't match. And then, like, the startup flopped because of that 2 times. Then we have different situation about more experienced people getting kind of co-founders and everything. So they understand better what they actually need in terms of expertise. They understand better their limitations, so they're kind of more self-aware, and that's really great. Um, if we talk about offering options or equity, I think
Bristles, can I just ask, is it a technical position or is it non-technical, more business development?
technical.
Muted, I think.
Sorry, I was looking for the mute. Yes, technical.
Oh well,
Yeah, okay.
I can't really help you with that. No, like it's not my area of expertise.
What I think is one thing I would add in is I don't know if we spoke about this before, but you've got places like Ironhack, General Assembly, Le Wagon, Flatiron School, where at the moment a lot of these coding, and you're not the first person to ask this, there are a lot of coding schools where these people want to either set up their own business or join as a co-founder and basically look for portfolio work. And it's one of the hardest things in a book, finding a technical co-founder to get these things going. And I've been there and done that sort of thing. And the whole point is, we know at the moment, at least from conversations talking with some of them, that they're trying to get their students linked into things like this and leverage things like workinstartups.com and things like that. The problem is there's no, and it's actually something we've been trying to look at, there's no portal to be able to do that, because I think in terms of the initial equity you've got to give them as an incentive on a technical role, it's obviously a lot higher than it would be on a more sort of BD role.
I'm looking for 7 years experience as well. Plus.
That's not an Ironhack or a General Assembly.
Okay.
7 weeks.
I think actually AngelList has this functionality. So they have the whole jobs board geared towards giving equity more than remuneration, and they say they're looking for CTO and things like this. So look into that. But I don't think there is still a perfect marketplace, because the space is evolving so much. There are more and more kind of ways to do it right, and I hate to say this kind of things, and I hate not to give you the right answer, but it's evolving. Things change a lot. And in every country, it works differently. Like the cultural aspect of trust, the legal aspects of how protected are shareholders, how protected are directors, it's different in every country. And I don't think even on UK scale I haven't seen anything working on UK scale. And global scale, it's just probably going to be more complicated.
To link in with University of Surrey, I'm just thinking in my head, but yeah, it's not an easy one. I was going to ask, so Ilya, were you looking at, does this follow your track in terms of getting, options into the country, or were you more looking for details on the process of actually setting up here? That's because I suppose that's the other end of the conversation, because we've looked at it obviously from a talent side. But
yeah. For me, it's super interesting. What are the visa challenges when you bring employees or co-founders from abroad, from let's say Russia?
Okay. So visa challenges when you bring employers, not employees, employers or co-founders from abroad to the UK, right? Okay. Right. So disclaimer, I'm not an immigration lawyer, so don't take it as a immigration advice. But basically, what you can do, the key visas to look at is the sole business representative. Another visa to look at is a tier 2 work visa. Complicated how to structure it, but possible. Another visa to look at is a global talent visa, especially if you have some tech background. And the final one is probably innovator visa or startup visa, which I personally don't recommend because it's a headache, but also worth reviewing. These are kind of the main pathways. Global talent, if you have tech background, look into this first. So you would need to create kind of a portfolio, kind of sell yourself as an expert in the technical field, and go ahead with that and basically show that you are recognized as someone who is contributing to and using a startup is possible to do that. It's a long topic to discuss, but in short, look into these visas. You can go to the gov.uk, see what it's like. Yeah, it just the visas are very different. Like, I can speak for like an hour, but it's just not. I don't think it's going to be right for the talent strategy right now.
Well, you made a whole course on this, didn't you?
No, I made a course on UK jobs on visas. So I made a course for basically it was my pain back when I was graduating. I was applying for jobs, like hundreds of jobs. I had like top uni. I had years of experience in finance and accounting and like consulting, and I couldn't get a job. And I was like, what's happening? After that, I got 3 offers. One of them I couldn't take because of the visa. The other one, basically, I persuaded my employer to get the work visa license. And this is how I discovered actually the visa things. Once you get into this, it's not difficult and it's not that expensive. So just if you're a startup and you want to hire an international, there are 2 things. There's the license and there's the visa. And license with the lawyers, if you get like right lawyers who don't want to charge you tens of thousands of pounds, it's going to be about 2, maybe 3,000 pounds to get the license. And the visa thing, in most cases, the employee pays for the visa for a startup. So, and that's going to be another like 3,000 pounds or something. So it's not impossible. It is a cost, but it's not impossible. So there is that. And in terms of the startups which can qualify for that, again, I'm not an immigration lawyer, but a startup can qualify for the tier 2 license if the startup shows that it's a real business, even if you have, or at least that's what I saw, even if they have 0 employees apart from the directors in the UK on PAYE, they can already hire someone if they show that they really need the person. Yep. So that's about that. And my course is about how to get a job, how to convince the employer, the guys like you, I guess, to give the visa. And it's about how do you sell yourself, because like most people don't sell themselves enough, and what value you can add. So things like applying for grants, getting investment, creating marketing analytics, which shows that basically, marketing is not working, and things like this. There are a bunch of things I take from my business consulting experience and just put it in terms of an online course.
Okay, interesting.
Right.
Anastasia's asked one as well.
Right. Do you think that it would be easier for non-EU citizens to come to UK to start working next year, January 2021? Yes and no, but mostly yes. So basically, what's happening, to those of you who don't know, well, UK is leaving EU, and because of that, the immigration rules start to change for the EU nationals. And what this means is that new people, new European citizens who come to the UK, who haven't been to the UK yet, who don't have pre-settled status, after January 2021, they will be pretty much subject to the same rules as everyone else from overseas. And that creates a level playing field for internationals from outside of EU and EU. So because of that, it will be easier for people outside of EU get a job in the UK. That's one thing. The other part of the answer is the rules are changing. The rules are simplifying work visa migration. So what's going to happen? That right now there is a resident labor market test, and that's basically a really outdated thing where you show that you really need the person when you're hiring the person, and that's an obstacle which some employers have to do when they employ people on certain types of visas. Actually, people on student visas, they're exempt from this kind of stuff. So it's going to be easier. And also salary requirements will be lower, and there are a few other things which are going to change for the better. Apart from the visa costs, because indirectly it's going to increase because of the NHS surcharge, which, anyway, you can look it up online. With the immigration, and that's, I guess I would want to talk a little bit about it. So, like, how got I messed up with this whole thing? And it's, immigration law is complicated, and also it's very regulated in the UK. So, and I had just pure business background. I just realized a lot of lawyers don't know how immigration law works, and that's how I started to work with immigration very carefully. Because I see the system is not working, and I see some of the, or at least most of the immigration lawyers I talked to back then, they didn't know how to help people. They just knew how to this specific visa works. They couldn't put it in the frame of the commercial situation the person was facing.
Has anyone got any other questions they wanted to stick in? Ilya, did that answer what you wanted in terms of opportunity of coming over?
Yeah. My potential co-founder is in the UK, and the question was for me, and also for like talent that we might want to bring. And Fedor gave me some starters.
Did EF help you on that process much, or?
EF helps me with visa for me.
Yeah.
But then,
after that, it's where it gets.
The problem with the visa, it's complicated. Like to explain what to do in your situation is going to take like an hour or something. And I don't think it's going to be relevant for others. No. But in short, you need to figure out how to bring yourself. You need to figure out how to bring the employees. What you can do is, for example, you can set up a company, get a UK director, get operations running. Then they hire the team, but then you have to figure out how to move yourself. So it's a bit complicated. And yeah.
I see.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks.
Has anyone else got any queries wanted to stick in there?
Right. In that case, guys, in terms of hiring, what are the biggest headaches for you? Or at least in terms of managing the team, what do you really struggle with, maybe day to day, or just regularly, just thinking, like what comes up to your mind? Is there anything like that? Okay, guys. Well, I'm really happy that all of you don't have any trouble with hiring people and managing people. That's amazing.
I think no, I'd stick in something there if that's okay. It's
Sure.
actually using jobs boards like work in startups is managing the influx of how many applications that you get. You know, there are more and more springing up like this, and it's a matter of the filtering process that we've gone through, and I've done with other companies before. In terms of, you've got lots of very highly qualified grads from, top Russell groups, but then again, it's knowing how long they're in it with you, and obviously, people, you learn it through doing. But you got any sort of, I suppose, recommendations there in terms of the best boards to use, or just the filtration process?
Right. So let's talk about two scenarios. One is you have a job ad and you're looking for collaborators. The other one, you have a job ad, you are actually hiring people. If you're looking for collaborators, working startups is probably the best place to look. Also look in Facebook groups and things like this. So just find relevant groups and just post, look, we're looking for help with this and that, not for profit, or no remuneration for experience. That works. Or you can talk to me. So if you need graduates, I'll help you, and it's going to be for free. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't get the chat going. Perhaps I can relate my very real problem, small problem, but I am looking for a technical co-founder, and so lots of people. So I've got something on work in startups, and I've got something on Angel List. So I'm familiar with those, and I will get offers, and it always comes down, and I've done this before, is because I'm virtually a very early stage revenue. It's kind of a pre-revenue startup, really, even though there are revenues, because there's still a lot of testing going on. There is, and I even have investors as well, but there's not a lot of money. Well, there's no money to pay salaries.
Okay.
So that was my question earlier about options or equity, because I can attract people and I can say there is no salary, but it always comes down to the reality hits for them. How long is this going to go on with no salary? They like the proposition. They want to work towards the exit and the equity situation. But the conversation always hovers around there. So my problem isn't finding people; it's trying to bring them on when they're often abroad as well. But the best responses come from overseas, and so then there's visa issues, there's equity issues. Those are I don't know if other people share this problem, but those are the things really is how to frame the relationship.
Okay, there are different ways to do it. First of all, my stance on tech talent, I think compared to Eastern Europe and some other countries, it's overpriced in the UK. If you can manage to work remote, like all of us do right now, there is no point hiring tech people in the UK because it just doesn't make much sense in most cases. That's first kind of aspect. But okay, let's say co-founder. So co-founder, maybe you want to meet with them, maybe you want the person that actually. Yep.
Just on your first point, which is right. I love the principle, and I have been working remotely with people all around the world, and it's great. But there comes a point when you want to build a company that investors are starting to look at the team, as we all know. And so it doesn't feel so solid when you're pointing to people around the world and saying, that's my team. And they're not really very attached. But that's the point there.
Yeah. I know that's when you're hiring like a tech development team or tech development company. I guess all of you had these messages on LinkedIn all of the time. It makes sense from just the cost perspective to offload most of the tech work away. In terms of CTO, and that's something I actually explored, most businesses don't really need an in-house CTO. But in case you really do, let's say first of all, like you find a person in the UK to be a CTO. So one way to do it is, first of all, you need to figure out yourself, or at least an estimate, how soon the thing's gonna like get going. How soon is it gonna start create revenue, or how soon the person will start getting money, like an estimate, like a financial forecast, right? Given your understanding of the business, the market, what needs to be done. Obviously, things can go wrong, and usually they will go wrong because it's a startup. But giving some kind of this kind of expectations and having like a chat. Hi there. So right now, can't offer you much. What I can do, I can give you an option. We like after a month we figure out if we work together. I give you 5% or I don't know 50%, depends on like your attitude to this kind of things. Then every half a year you stick with us, you get extra 1 to 2% more. This works. Then you just have a really good agreement to kind of make sure everyone is on the same page. And then you basically say, look, we're going to work it out. And as soon as we start getting revenue, and as soon as we can start spending revenue on ourselves, you'll get your share. And these are the financial forecasts I have. This is how much I expect to earn. And this is how much I expect to be able to give to you in the early days. If that's okay for you, let's go ahead. Let's change the world. If not, well, sorry, maybe we can work out something like part-time. Again, sometimes part-time CTO is enough. So that would be my stance. In terms of visas, right? In terms of bringing the person to the UK, your startup needs to be able to afford to pay this person a salary. If you doesn't need to be like 40, 55,000 pounds, at least like 30,000, right? If you can set it out as kind of a budget, not like upfront for a year, but with the cash flow it's going to work, then you can discuss visa. If not, it's going to be an empty promise.
Aristos, I know you have one point about starting off and giving equity to people who are in a foreign jurisdiction. I mean, just from our scenario, my co-founder lives in Panama. So we've never had an issue up to this point in her having shares in the company because that's all dealt with in her own jurisdiction. She's not a director of the company. So you may be in the same point as keeping them aside where they do have an important position, but you're not putting them as a director because the whole tax implications get dealt with in their own jurisdiction, because if they're going to receive anything there, it's then localized to that. So that's how we've tried to keep everything simple as possible up to this point. I don't know if that may help.
Yeah, as options or equity?
No, straight up equity.
Okay.
Sort of 3-year vesting, as we all have. So, yeah.
Yeah, I also mostly dealt with equity, but I've seen a really clever agreement where kind of experienced guy offers a less experienced one as a co-founder, but gives like, I think 5 or 10%, and then every year, that's where the idea came from. Every year you increase options, but you also propose a salary. So again, there will be one founder who is kind of like yourself, who will be in charge of everything, and there will be a minority co-founder because it's your idea you've been developing for so long.
Yeah, the problem is giving away potentially a significant amount of equity for somebody who then decides after 2 years, I've seen a job over there, I like to go, and then all that equity is somebody who's no longer in the company.
You can write it down. You can write it down in terms of that the tech equity can't be locked. Again, best if you speak to the lawyers about that. There's like lawyers who deal with this kind of things day to day. Sure. So what can work? First of all, talk to the lawyers who are specialists in that, who are specialists in equity and startup funding. They will help you figure it out. Or maybe talk to Alex. You write down in the equity agreement, or I'm not sure how it's called, like separate agreements, that if the person is out of the business, he'll have to sell the shares of the business at the price he purchased. He got this. So like for £1, he gives you all the shares back, or something like this. So you have to write it down somewhere in the agreement, because what happens if the person goes away out of the business with significant equity, business is not gonna work. So you need to kind of write it down, or maybe like transfer it into a loan or something like this.
Okay. Options are a lot more complicated, and Aristos will drop you a link to someone after this with some details on that. So, is there any final things people wanted to ask? I think that's pretty much covered a hell of a lot, to be honest. So hopefully some of that's been quite useful. I've learned more, so for sure.
Well, we're all learning. Like I've worked with HR in different organizations, mostly smaller ones, and then I hired people myself, and I thought, I would be smart. I wasn't smart. I was hiring wrong people. I would waste more time talking to people than these people actually doing something for the business. And I'm talking about, tens of hours each month. And that also happens. And then the equity thing almost happened. I almost gave away equity to the person who was completely wrong in the business. And that I figured out like after a month or two. I was really happy. I was really kind of, enthusiastic about the business. Person seemed to be the right fit back then. Then I just realized we can't work together. So yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. Anything else then? But Fedor, it just goes for me to say thanks a lot for helping. Thanks a lot for the advice, and I think everyone else would echo that. I suppose if people want to get in touch, I think a few people already know you, but what's the best way to do that? Is it goldmanprofessionals.co.uk?
Yeah. Go to the website, go to our social media, just drop us a line, and I will reply to you. My marketing manager will reply to you.
Great. Same for us with Kaiku, Kaiku.co. So there's some other things like legal things, more options things that come off from that, which I can sort of support on as well, but that's a completely different side of things. That's the main thing there. But thanks a lot for joining us. We've got an event following up on the 15th, I believe, with the Creator Fund, which is basically the dorm room of Europe that's coming out of Founders Factory. So anyone that is at, I suppose, recent graduate stage as well, looking at very, very, very pre-seed funding. Jamie, the founder, is doing a session with us. He's the ex-head of dorm room Stanford. So that's, the largest global fund for student capital. So it's going to be quite interesting. So that's all on the site. So hopefully see you there. If you've got any queries, just, drop us a note beyond that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks a lot. And Fedor, thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.